Welcome back. Today we're going to talk about the TRN MT4. So try not to get too many fingerprints on this guy, but it is a very shiny, reflective metal faceplate. Very nicely done for $16. On the side, it says MT4, QDC connector, brass nozzle, nice nozzle cover. But the real story on the MT4 and why it's somewhat special are the two dynamic drivers. So 10mm beryllium coated dynamic driver there, and a smaller companion 6mm, they call it the mid-range driver, which is the small guy right there. So pretty cool. Have a dynamic driver at a low cost, something for people to try. Box is not all that special. Cable is one that you've seen from TRN before. That's this kind of thinner 4-core with the L-shaped or 90-degree 3.5mm. One of their stock cables that they've been using for quite a while. So let's kind of begin right here, and this will give you a flavor for what TRN did right and what this one kind of sounds like. So I've talked about this lots before. Lots and lots of sets follow ARIA style tuning. This one follows it very closely, and you can kind of see where TRN added their flavor to it. So TRN, this is almost a more V-shaped version of ARIA's tuning. This is not a $16 ARIA, not even close. This is just, TRN following a sort of known recipe that gets the levels somewhat right, and then adding their own little flavor to it. So just a little bit more mid-bass, which I think ARIA had enough, but they added a little bit. And that's just mostly because they added a little bit there too. So bring this a little bit more forward, raise it up a little bit more. I would call this move TRN Bright. They've actually done this quite a bit. This is actually a conservative version of TRN Bright. And I think these two are actually done well. And as far as, a very, very nice entry-level V-shaped set, this one is right on. I think they nailed the price, nailed the tuning. Again, starting with this kind of base recipe of what ARIA does. Gets your levels right, gets your extension right, gets the stage right. Lots and lots of things are kind of right on, and then TRN just kind of adds their flavor to it. So not too surprising that this one is well done when you look at the graph. So let's kind of jump into it. We'll go through this one quickly because, like I said, it's right here. So classic V-shape done well. This is one of these things, either you love V-shapes or you hate them. If you hate them, this one won't change your mind. If you don't know what to buy, V-shape is always a great entry-level set. Lots of bass, lots of treble. This one has nothing really wrong in the middle, but it is a V-shape, and for people who don't like V-shapes, it still has the V-shape problems, kind of a recessed mid, and maybe a slightly distracting level of treble, but as far as a V-shape being done very well, there's no problems with this one. It's actually a very, very nice one. So they added enough bass, about 9 dB of bass on the bass shelf, a little more pin gain, 11 dB. So they're kind of, and I would call that move TRN Bright. So quite a bit of bass, and then just add a slightly more pin gain, and you just get a little more clarity to your vocals and instruments, and you end up with that classic fun but a clear version, slightly TRN Bright sound executed on a pair of decent dynamic drivers, and you end up with something that's a really good value. $16 sounds great. V-shape, you know what you're getting into. It's going to work really well on pop music. So there's almost no surprises here. It's just a well-done V-shape. The only surprise is unit variation. I think it actually is kind of real. And we'll look kind of closely at what this actually looks like. So Hawaii Bad Boy, I think, called this one a bass headset. And if you look at his set in the blue, yeah, it's actually quite a bit bassier than my version. So this is my left in the green, which kind of just hits about 65 dB. Then the right side is just a little bit more. So there's just a tiny mismatch between those two, but that's probably within their spec. But yeah, Hawaii Bad Boys is a little bit more here and a little bit more here. And I don't think that's a coupler variation. I think that's just a unit variation. And I've actually looked at other graphs, and there definitely are unit variations with the MT4. I happen to like mine. I actually like the way. Maybe that's a little less bass than what the typical stock should be, but it actually works for me. So I would say mine is bass shy, but the balance, like I said, this 9 and 11 actually works out really well for me. The balance is just a hair upper mid energetic, And maybe it's accidental, but the stage and the imaging work well too because of that balance. So it's not the width, but it's really the space between the instruments. The width is actually good, but just hearing that space between instruments and not feeling claustrophobic or the stage is too small or everything is on top of each other, it just really works out really well. And it's a very pleasant way to listen to music. And it's exactly what KZ ZVX was missing. So tips, this is another set where they included their TRN, T-tips, I don't remember what they're called, but they included the medium one. If the medium one doesn't work for you, you're going to have to change to the other tips. But this is another set where it's super important to get the fit right. If the fit is not right, and mine is a little bit bass shy, so if the fit isn't right, you're going to be a very bright set. So make sure that fit is actually perfect. So on the bass, as I said, mine might be a little bit bass shy, but it's still a fun boosted level for me. Not too much, not too little. It balances against the upper mids as it should. Just a general appealing level for pop music, right? Lots of punch. There is some sub bass to it. It just makes everything sound quite reasonable and appealing. Not boomy. It carries over just enough warmth into the mids, and it balances that against the upper mids for that mid brightness as well. That's really what tuning is about, and this is how just creating balance between bass levels and mid bass and sub bass against the upper mids, having that brightness and articulation and clarity that you get in the instruments. That's what this is all about. That's why Aria's tuning works. That's why TRN stuck to it and just added their little flavor to it. Sure, it could use a tiny bit more sub bass to rumble against the kind of cleaner thumpy sound, but that's just more of a nitpick. It actually sounds fine. So the mids, again, classic V shape. So the male vocals are going to be back a little. Not a shocking surprise. If you look at any other V-shaped sets, you're going to see the same complaints. Recessed mids, and again, you have the same bit here. It's not too bad at all, but the mids will be set back a little, and the females are definitely brought forward. And you can kind of see this on the graph. So this bumping just a little bit earlier, bumping a little bit higher, carries those female vocals kind of right there in front of you. Again, for pop music, that is a perfect move. $16 set, that's pretty much what you're expecting to hear. So I think I found myself turning up the males because they're just set back a little bit more. So I turned the volume up on the males, and I ended up turning the volume back down on the females. Doesn't happen on every set, but on this one, it actually happened quite a bit. And it's really more about having it sound better than I can't listen to it at high volume. I didn't really find this fatiguing. It's not too shouty. Again, I would call it TRN bright. If you've ever heard TRN sets, especially some of the older ones, they do V-shapes, and where KZ does a V-shape that's sort of bass heavy, TRN does one that's a little bit brighter, and this is exactly what that tuning sounds like. So slightly bright, like I said, lots of detail from the treble, nothing out of place, which is really important at this price. More so than, is this a detail king or a resolution crazy set? It's at $16. It's more about nothing out of place, no surprises. Music sounds as it should, and that's exactly what this set does well. So from bass to mid to treble, just very consistent detail. And again, it sounds more like one dynamic driver, and it's actually done pretty well, how they got that consistently from bass all the way through into treble. So speaking of the treble, again, great extension without too much boost. Similar to Tin's Tin Hi-Fi C2, right? C2 was a very extended, very sharp sounding set. And again, you can kind of see what TRN did. This whole treble extension, extending it all the way out and dropping it down slightly so it's not too boosted, but you can actually hear it. And in this case, because they boosted this a little bit, so this is a little boosted up just a little bit as well, just so you can hear the upper treble against the lower treble. Again, just a very good move. And again, just follow what Aria did and tweak it for the set and the drivers that you have, and that's exactly what they did. So this lower treble, it does have good energy for those female vocals. That upper treble, like I said, just lifted just enough to be heard. So there is plenty of air, there is plenty of lower treble. The two actually sound quite balanced. They're just in the V-shaped signature. So that gives the stage height and more detail, albeit slightly boosted and forced, but perfect for the price, right? So your cymbals, some of those high energy instruments are going to sound a little more energetic. It's not, I wouldn't call it distracting at all. I would just say it's a little more energetic. And again, if you're buying this set, you're probably a fan of V-Shape anyway, and you're used to it. So it's delivering exactly what you would expect it to deliver. Stage, well done. Better than many more expensive past TRN sets. And what TRN used to do in the past, like I said, they would move this whole bit about moving the pin of gain up and forward is something that they've done quite a bit. That tends to move the stage, again, forward and closer to your face. And they used to have a lot of sets that used to sound like almost wearing goggles right around your face. It was really in and close, and that works for some people, but it never really felt spacious. It just felt kind of intense and close to your face. But to hear a TRN in this signature with a little bit more depth and proper height, I think they actually nailed the stage on this one. And again, like I said, it's actually better than some of the past TRN sites. And as a proper V-shape set should do, and why I love proper V-shape sets, it should, fill your head with music. Your whole head should be surrounded by, high energetic, bassy, bright, V-shaped music. And that's exactly what this set does. And it does it at a price that's perfect, and a signature that's executed well on a couple drivers that are actually very decent. So lots and lots of stuff that were done very right at a set that is very affordable for lots of people. So well done on the MT4 for TRN. So that's what I got on the MT4. So thank you again for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.